One mic, one voice, live in 1 minute. Y'all don't mind if I play my guitar for a minute,
One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice.
Welcome to the One Mic, One Voice show, building the collective conscious. A show that's created to give space where your voice, ideas, and informed opinions can be heard, appreciated, and debated. I am Michael Eric Owens. Man, happy MLK Day. Yeah, this is a special edition. You know, I normally do it on Sundays, but I could not miss this opportunity to come before you today and to talk about Dr. King. I know there's a lot of things going on around our world. I know there's probably a lot of people involved in service today and serving their community. That's a wonderful, wonderful act. A wonderful, I think, reflection of Dr. King's life. And but I'm glad you stopped around to spend a little time with me, because I believe it's important, especially in this moment that we are in, this chaotic, some would say undemocratic moment that we are in, to reflect upon Dr. King in such a way that can help us understand not just Dr. King, but who we are and what we are. So today, this podcast, this special podcast, is titled "How Much of Dr. King is in You?" How much of Dr. King is in you? And I want you to really think about that, because we have this awakening in our country, this awakening for social justice, to get engaged, involved in wearing BLM T-shirts and ball caps and all that is fashionable. But really, how much of MLK is in you? And I'm not saying that King was the architect, but he was one of the architects when it comes to civil rights, I think, activism. Clearly, he was among the greats, if not the greatest. But this is what I want you to understand about Dr. King. He was not, although we revere him today, that we honor him, we celebrate him. We have made him one of our civil rights icons, right? Black and white, doesn't matter. We all look at him in a sense of awe, in a sense of an individual that is willing to sacrifice their own life for others, right? The Jesus principle, right? That I'm willing to lay down my life for you. That's what King did. So we revere him. We speak of him in such eloquent ways. But do you know this? He was despised. Now, you hear people say this, but I want you to understand he was a hated man when he was alive. Matter of fact, right before King's death, he had a 75% unfavorable rating among American people. Now let's get that. Only 25% favored King. And he was not only despised by white America, but he was despised by many in the black community. He was not this revered and loved individual that we celebrate today. You see, oftentimes when you are a leader and you stand up for truth and justice, you're crucified in the moment. But when history looks back on you, yeah, you become a hero. Because it's hard for us to see it in the moment. It's hard for us to understand, especially that level of greatness, that level of sacrificial, right? Sacrificial quest to save others. So he had a 75% disapproval rating right before his death, right? He was despised. And you remember, close to his death, he talked about the capitalism and the Vietnam War and economic disparities, and after he had that speech, especially at the Riverside Church, the consequences were swift and severe. An outraged president, this was Johnson, Lyndon Johnson, cut off all contact with King. And a great number of black Americans, including many of his friends and allies in the movement, turned their back on him. So when we talk about King, we have to talk about the real Martin Luther King Jr. I'm not talking about the one that we have placed on a pedestal, and he's worthy of all of these accolades, but I'm talking about the time in which he operated. And the time in which he operated, folks, he was highly disliked. Think about that. The man that stood for truth and justice, the nonviolent man, right? Again, the Jesus principle, turn the other cheek, pray for thy enemy. King talked about how to befriend someone is by loving them. Here was the Gandhian student that not only read, but applied. And what happened? They cut him down. They assassinated him. They took his life. 75% of the American public despised Dr. King at his death. How much of Dr. King is in you? We all know he was a Baptist minister. You know what I thought? I thought for this show, it would be best to hear King in his own words and then take an inventory of ourselves. Yeah, let's do that, right? Sometimes, well, hold on, Mike, the standard is way up there. No, he was just a man. He's a man on a mission. He was a man with a moral compass, right? But he was still a man, right? So don't say what King achieved you couldn't achieve. That's not true. He was just a man, but he's a man on a mission. He's a man that understood his purpose and his calling, and he was true to that, right? He didn't run from it. He wasn't a man caught up in ego, in attitude, and it's all about me. No, that was not Dr. King. He had a laser focus on his purpose. and he would not be denied. The only thing that denied him, of course, was the bullet. Yeah, they've gotten many of us that way. So King came to prominence really 1955 to his death in April 4th, 1968. He was born, if you didn't know this, he was born Michael King Jr., and they changed his name. That's worthy of analysis itself. But January 15th, 1929, he would turn 91 this year if he was still among us. How you see his legacy is one that impacts us. But what if we had the man himself all of these years through all of these challenges? Of course, he was assassinated April 4th, 1968 at the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis, Tennessee. If you have not been there, I would really suggest that you go there. On October 4th, 1964, King won the Nobel Peace Prize for combating racial inequality through nonviolent resistance. In his final year, he expanded his focus to include opposition toward poverty, capitalism, and the Vietnam War. So I'm trying to paint a picture here of King. Think about this. Not the modern day King, but the one that existed then. I'm trying to paint a picture of the pressure in which he was under. Right? We talked about that he had only 75%. He had a 75% disapproval rating right before his death. So only 25% of people in the country had a favorable view of him. We know that because of his speaking out against the Vietnam War, Johnson, that close relationship with President Johnson was severed, and many of those who supported him and walked with him turned their backs on him. Okay. So here is Dr. King, the one we celebrate today. What does he have to say? What would he have to say? Well, let me just touch a little bit on a couple of things that we find written in the letter from the Birmingham jail. And this is King in his own words, because I think it's important that oftentimes we build these narratives around people. We build this idea of what the individual is, but not truly who they are. And so the best way to know someone is to listen to what they say, number one, or to watch what they do, right? So this is what King says. He said, perhaps it is easy for those who have never felt the stinging darts of segregation to say, wait. This is when people were telling him, Martin, we've gotten this, so slow it down. We've got some progress. Even when people say to us today, oh, well, America's made progress. So we're okay. King said, but when you have seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers at will and drown your sisters and brothers at whim, when you have seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, and even kill your black brothers and sisters, then you will understand why we find it difficult to wait. It could have been written yesterday. It is poetic in a way when words from the past are fitting for today, but it's also sad that those same words speak to the moment in time in which we are struggling with today. And this is what he says about white moderates. Oh, let's say, can we apply this even to the woke generation? Now, I said, how much King do you have in you? It goes back to the old saying, if the shoe fits, wear it. I'm not pointing a finger at anybody, but I think this can apply to the woke generation. King says this: I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his strive toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly say, get this, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, which paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mystical concept of time and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Okay. What is King trying to say here? Is that it's not good enough. It's not good enough to say that you support justice, opportunity, access for black people. It's not even good enough to march for these things for black people. But if you're not in the struggle to actively change this system, then you are the greatest stumbling block. Because you know what? I know what the Ku Klux Klan is about. I know what the neo-Nazis are about. I know about those who are outwardly against this movement. But for those who stand right beside me, that will walk with me when it's convenient, that will chant with me when everybody else is in the chorus, but the minute they stand alone, they stay silent. They don't speak up. Outside of my presence, you maintain the status quo. Be careful, woke generation, that you don't fall into the white moderate, right? If you have not noticed, we're in terrible times. I don't think anybody could escape the siege on the Capitol of the last, on January 6th, of what has transpired in the last couple of weeks in our country, and the vitriol and the hatred, and not just toward Jews, but toward black folks and white folks and LGBTQ plus folks. Listen, we need some soldiers. You see, Dr. King was truly a soldier for justice. Yes, he was in the army of changing America. He was a leader in that. He was in direct combat. Although it was nonviolent, he was in direct verbal combat and also physical combat, because he pushed in the only way he could. He made it visual, and he was sacrificial. Now, I want to divide these words of King into three categories. One is individual, social, politics, and the other one I call the woke generation. Let's take a couple of these. And again, remember I said, how much of Dr. King is in you? We want to take a self-inventory. As Mike Jack said, we're looking at the man or the woman in the mirror. All right. And if you can only be honest with yourself, don't fool yourself. So many out here are trying to fool you and pull the rug out from under you and deceive you and gaslight you. Don't do that to yourself. Open up your own eyes. So King says this: an individual has not started living until he or she can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. So this idea of having king in me is this idea that I am more concerned about others than I am myself. So when we talk about celebrating king, we can't be this self-absorbed, narcissistic, sociopathic person and say that we honor king. You know what's so sad? What's so sad here is that we have all of these right wing and these extreme evangelical churches celebrating Dr. King. King was concerned about the least among us. King was not caught up in materialism. He wasn't caught up in who's who and who's important and who's not. He was concerned about the least among us. He marched for those who could not march. He gave a voice for those who were the voiceless. That was king, and he was hated for it. I ask you again, how much Dr. King is in you? To be concerned about your brother and your sister, no matter what color they are, no matter what gender they are, no matter what socioeconomic status they may be in, no matter what sexual orientation, to be concerned about the other more than you are concerned about yourself. And folks, we're going to go to break here, but we're going to be right back. This is also what Dr. King said. Dr. King said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. We'll be right back.
This is Michael Eric Owens, host of the One Mic, One Voice show. I want to give a shout out to all of our listeners all across the globe. Thank you for your undivided attention and for your conversation. You can catch us every Sunday on YouTube, 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And you can also catch us on Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, on any one of those lovely, wonderful podcasting platforms you love to listen to. Please always remember, you can change the world. It's your choice.
All right, folks. Dr. King said, there comes a time when one must take a position. That one must take a position that is neither safe nor politic nor popular. But he or she must take it because his conscience or her conscience tells him or her it is right. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. How much of Dr. King is in you? Again, I want to look at the words of Dr. King. The ultimate measure of a man or a woman is not where he or she stands in the moment of comfort and convenience, but where he or she stands at the time of challenge and controversy. How are you standing? Again, We're remembering King. So you might say, well, hey, Michael, I don't know if that is appropriate for this moment, this time. Yeah, it is, because we're focusing on King. Linda says, a man, very informative session. Thanks for sending me a reminder. You're most welcome. We're talking about Dr. King, right? So we are in a time where you have to take a stand. Otherwise, you are part of the problem. If you are not speaking up for social justice or equal rights in the face of white supremacy, the growth of white supremacy, if you are simply a bus rider in white privilege, or if you are a black and brown person in which your head is in the sand, then you are part of the problem. Because the ultimate measures, this is what King is talking about, not where you stand in the moment of comfort, but inconvenience. When you're in that store and you hear somebody say something nasty to a black or brown person, or to an immigrant because they're speaking Spanish, or you hear your relative at the kitchen table or on the phone or on the Zoom now say something negative, hateful about people of color, what do? How much King is in you? Because if we truly want to celebrate Dr. King, I see all this stuff on social media and everybody taking his quotes and everybody doing, but are you living up to this man that you are honoring? King says, we cannot walk alone. The hope of a secure and livable world lies with disciplined nonconformists who are dedicated to justice, peace, and brotherhood. Nonconformants. One thing I've known about corporate America, a lot of these organizations that we get involved with, a lot of these organizations that call for diversity and inclusion. Oh, man, it sounds wonderful. Oh, they announce their initiative and they hire someone and man, it sounds amazing. But you know what they really want you to do is just conform. That's what they want you to do. They don't want you to be different, because to them, different is deficient. Different is not right. Different is problematic. What they want you to do is conform. See, that's the problem. Dr. King said, discipline nonconformance. But usually what happens is, and I've been in this situation a few times when they wanted me to conform and I couldn't do it. So what happened? Eventually they get you out of there because they want people to conform, right? Our society is not going to evolve if you simply conform. We need to transform our society, transform community policing, transform the leadership on state, local, state, and national levels, transform who makes decisions in this country. I said it. Yes. Black and brown people need to be making more decisions in this country on the local level, state level, and national level. They need the same access to the same economic advantages that our white brothers and sisters have. We don't need to continue to ask for your permission to spend money in our community. We should have an organization where we receive money, where we make decisions. Why? That's what you do. Why is that? Am I saying anything that doesn't exist already? No. Listen. Let's talk about politics for a moment here. Let's do that. What did King have to say about politics? Well, let's take capitalism for a moment, because you hear everybody, whenever you criticize capitalism, people get upset. People say, let the markets handle itself and don't get in. And if capitalism rewards hard work, this, that, in theory, King says capitalism does not permit an even flow of economic resources. With this system, a small privileged few are rich beyond conscious, and almost all others are doomed to be poor at some level. That's the way the system works. And since we know that the system will not change the rules, get this, folks, this is when you become king-like, right? We are going to have to change the system. King's talking about changing capitalism, changing the system in America. Now, see, we celebrate him again. We celebrate big time. We have his posters everywhere. Oh, we have parades and we have everyone acknowledging his greatness. But let's go back. At the time of his death, 75% of the country disapproved of him. Why? Because of this and other things. King said the system is not right. It is broken, in other words, and it needs to be changed. Isn't that true? In our country, the rich are getting richer. The poor are getting poorer. Isn't it true? Why can't we face up to those realities? Just because we had a system doesn't mean that we cannot evolve into something better. Maybe it served its purpose at its time. I don't know. But it's not working for everybody. And again, King was concerned about who? The least among us. And if I have King in me and I honor him, then I should also be concerned about the least among us. King says, rarely do we find men or women who willingly engage in hard, solid thinking. Oh, this is power for the course. There is an almost universal quest for easy answers and half-baked solutions. I wish he could have put easy answer or misinformation. Nothing pains some people more than having to think. To think. When's the last time you read a book? When's the last time you put down your cell phone and read some articles, some scholarly articles? When's the last time you watched a documentary? When was the last time you paused and critically thought about your life? Thought about those you have in your circle? Thought about how you can make this world, your community, a better place? You see, we so caught up in tweets and selfies. We're so caught up in, Call of Duty, or my son is, my son doing his own thing. So I used to know all that, but I don't anymore. But caught up in all of these things, these distractions, and we become comfortable with it. And King says nothing pains some people more than having to think. That's the problem with Trumpism, is they're just told what to believe because it's too difficult to do your own research, to look at both sides of the issue, to find your own truth. It's easier just to tell me, because I believe in this person. I believe in this ideology. You're speaking what I need for you to do, right? For me. And so there's no reason for me to think. The soft-minded man or woman always fears change. He feels or she feels security in the status quo and has almost morbid fear of the new. For him or her, the greatest pain is the pain of a new idea. I mean, doesn't America seem like listen, the whole 4+ years was make America great again. Go back to the old, go back to the ways of traditional thinking. But yet and still, do you notice this, that in technology, we reward new ideas, new ways of doing things, new ways of communicating and interacting and doing our work. We embrace new ways. But no, when it comes to the social realm, I don't want to change that. I don't want to talk about that privilege. I don't want to talk about reparations. I don't want to talk about those things that will open up opportunity to black and brown people. I don't want to. No, we don't need to change that. We don't need a new idea on that. You keep those ideas to yourself. But technology, come on. Give me those ideas. Yeah, let me make my life better. But how about our lives? While you're ignoring this, we're still here. We're still dealing with this. Dr. King's words, his life, his struggle is still our struggle. He would have been 91 this year. Why are we still having this struggle? We shall overcome. When are we going to even get there to overcome it? I don't have much time left. I didn't want to keep you long because I know there's things that you have to do, but I have to. I have to talk about the woke generation because I have to tell you folks I'm a little trouble. Now, I know I'm going to make some people upset. But just because you saw George Floyd and it impacted your life doesn't make you a soldier in this struggle. Just because you attended some protest and you said Black Lives Matter, or you held up a sign, or you might have got maced, or even if you got arrested, doesn't mean you're in this struggle. Just because you put something on social media, you made some people mad, you argued with a few. You might not even be talking to your dad or your mom, and that relationship is severed because of the events of the day. Doesn't make you in this struggle. Because it's not about an event. It's not about a conversation. It's not about a protest. It's not about a post on social media. This is about 400 years plus. You can't take a moment. You can't take 6 months. You can't put together a march anywhere and say that you are in the struggle. Come back and see me 5 years from now. Show me your resume. Come back 10 years from now, because yes, folks, we will still be in this struggle. We'll still be there. Took us 401 years to get here. You think we're going to end it? You think we're going to be done? Just because Joe Biden's in office? No. Woke generation. These are some things I think can apply here that I want our woke folks to consider. The words of King. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. The best advice I can continue to give to my woke brothers and sisters, and some of you black. I'm not just speaking to all white folks. Some of you black, some of you just woke up. Some of you have been running around here like racism and discrimination doesn't exist, but you woke up. The best advice I can give you is to listen. Stop trying to lead. Stop it. Listen. Learn. Your moment, your temporary moment of awakening is giving you temporary knowledge, limited knowledge of the black struggle, of the brown struggle in this country. Life, King goes on. Most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but comes through continuous struggle. That's it. That's it. If we're going to honor King, we have to understand that this is a continual battle. It's a continual struggle. The conversation never ends. When people say, oh my God, here we go again. It never ends. Why? Because if we want to bring change, and we know how difficult and painful change is, if we want to bring change, then we have to, folks, we have to be consistent in our struggle. Consistent. I know the moment, the energy, you're down there with your friends and everything. You seem like you're making a difference, right? I understand protests and marching. Been in many of them myself. I understand that. But that's not the work. That's a reaction. That's a reaction. I'm talking about the work. The work is continual. The work is every day. The conversation is every day. The engagement is every day. The pushback against racism and discrimination and ostracism on your jobs, in your circle, it is every day. If you have Dr. King in you. King says human progress is neither automatic or inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires, get this, woke folks, listen to me. If you're truly in this struggle, you're truly honoring, identifying with King, it will cost you. Before you signed up, before you put your hand up to take the oath, I don't know if they do that, but somebody should have told you a couple of things. Every step toward the goal of justice requires 1, sacrifice, 2, suffering, and 3, struggle. The tireless exertion and passion concern of dedicated individuals. Dr. King says, listen, sacrifice, suffering, and struggle. Sacrifice, suffering, and struggle. If you identify with Dr. King, with this cause, with this struggle, how much are you sacrificing? How much are you suffering? I can tell you it ain't easy. I've been doing it for decades. I've been called all types of things. Yeah. I remember when I published my first book, I had just come to Oklahoma. There were people calling me a racist. They called me a radical and a racist. They hadn't met me. My first book is Yes, I Am Who I Am, A New Philosophy of Black Identity, where I break down what does it mean to be black in America. I think it's a balanced book. I speak very truthful about my experience in and outside of the black community. I talk about colorism, internal racism in the black community. But this person and persons not even met me. I don't even think they read the book, but they saw the title and they called me a racist. Interesting. How much have you sacrificed and suffered? I've lost employment like so many others due to not conforming, due to asking for fairness, due to pointing out discrimination. Yes, I've paid a price with the loss of income simply for trying to speak up for justice. Yeah, I've been overlooked more times than I probably would even know in my lifetime because of how I present myself. I'm going to speak up for justice. If not for myself, for others. Yeah, I've been criticized and penalized for standing up for truth and justice for others when it did not benefit me at all. And I'm not trying to say these things so that you can say how great Michael is. No, I'm not saying that. I defeated the ego a long time ago. What I'm saying to you is this. That's how much King is in me. I feel like I can honor him because I have practiced what he preached. That's the only reason why I'm telling you that. I don't need accolades. Arthur says the word racism gets thrown around out of context far too often. I would agree with you on that. I would agree with you definitely on that. The ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the silence over that by the good people. Folks, understand this, and I'm going to wrap this up. Understand this. Know the real King. Yes, we celebrate him. Yes, we honor his contributions. But know that the man that was truly called Doc King was a hated man. You see, time has a way of giving us the ability to analyze the life and contributions of an individual where the present doesn't. As historians, we like to say it's too early to tell, so we have to step back. But during his time, he was considered a radical. People called him a communist. The FBI was after him, considered him to be the most dangerous man in America. Upon his death, he had a 75% disapproval rating. Only 25% of the country saw Dr. King in favorable light. And at that time, coming out against the Vietnam War, not only did President Johnson turn his back on him, but many of those who walked with him and supported him turned their backs on him. He was despised by many in the black community. Okay. Just a little historical note. He was rejected by Calvary Baptist Church in Oklahoma City because they said he was too young when he applied for the position. Yeah. What would Oklahoma be like with Dr. King in it? I want to end with this quote. The words of King. Courage is an inner resolution to go forward despite obstacles. Cowardice is submission, surrender to circumstances. Courage breeds creativity. Cowardice represses fear and is mastered by it. Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And Dr. King goes on to say, and there comes a time when we must take a position that is neither safe nor politic, nor popular, but one must take it because it is right. History will speak of us. Somewhere in the distant future, a scribe will reach down deep into the archives of our time, and what will she find? Will she discover that we overcame our differences? Will she find that out of many, we became one? Or will she find that we solved nothing and remain a divided peoples? Yes, history will speak of us.
We can make a difference if we try. We can be the change that's in our lives. All we gotta do is work together. We gotta raise our children better. We gotta stop the hate, and spread the love.
One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. One mic, one voice. You can change the world, it's your choice. Your choice.
Thank you for downloading the One Mic, One Voice show. Take a moment and subscribe and share. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platform. Thank you for your continued support and for your voice. You can change the world. It's your choice. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on the One Mic, One Voice show are not the views, thoughts, and opinions of our sponsors.